Game&Watch are good. Well, today I'm going to talk about them. In 1980, Nintendo created the Game&Watch, released during a time when Nintendo decided to move towards the gaming market, which was very exciting and new back then, unlike now because so many companies release games you can only complete by pouring your wallet on them. Gunpei Yokoi created the series before going on to design the Game Boy, with the first game in this Game&Watch series being Ball, a wonderful LCD handheld where you play as Mr. Game&Watch, a staple in the series, who moves his arms left and right with the corresponding buttons to catch and juggle his balls. Other than playing the dedicated device's games, you can also tell the time, hence the name, for those of you who might have missed that one. Let me tell you, when I say there are a lot of games in this series, I mean there are a lot of games in this series. There are also a lot of series in this wait. In fact, it's the newest series I wanted to talk about today, although all that classic stuff is still relevant, which is why I turned into Wikipedia for a second. The new Color Screen series, starting with the Super Mario Bros. System, was designed in the style of a classic Game & Watch, with newer features, a sleek gold faceplate, and strong red plastic shell. I find this console fun, a neat little device with an enjoyable selection of features, and all as a portable experience you can fit into your pocket. Not sponsored. Not yet, anyway. The Super Mario Bros. Game & Watch was released in 2020, pleasantly followed by The Legend of Zelda Game & Watch releasing just a year after in 2021. Both of these consoles were made to celebrate the 35th anniversary of each series, starting with the title games from each device, respectively. I could talk about both of these consoles all day, and I kind of will. If you want to learn more about these consoles, you should be able to find some interesting information online. Something I found looking into them was fan-made versions as extensions to this new collection. A lot of these fan designs were really well put together, so much so that they inspired me to make my own. I made a collection of concepts, full of designs aiming to be something both old and new players could enjoy, as well as a sincere celebration to the lineup's legacy. Plus, they tell the time too, so super useful. The game series I found most deserving of the Game & Watch treatment were Donkey Kong, Pokemon, Kirby, and the last one was a combination of Metroid and Kid Icarus. The four consoles are the remaining colours of the rainbow, and are designed around the two existing consoles being red and green. I chose orange for the Donkey Kong system, as a homage to the original Donkey Kong console for the Game & Watch. The Pokemon Game & Watch is blue. The gold faceplate surrounded by the blue plastic shell reminds me of the Pokemon logo. It's the kind of nerdy thing that fills me with serotonin. Kirby is yellow, although the idea of making it pink had occurred to me since everyone else's design had it pink, but I had to be special and make it yellow. The reason being the actual amount of yellow appearing in the series is quite high, and seeing the design of yellow and gold just felt right, so let's just say I styled it on the Warp Star or something and move on. Once I got onto the Metroid and Kid Icarus version, I assigned it purple as the rainbow gimmick was already in motion, plus the purple colour suits the design and prominently appears in both series. My process of selecting games was erratic, until I began thinking about what each console would represent. So I based the design on what people found fun. Choosing from a limited number of games as not to overinflate the pocket-sized console, and of what felt right for the legacy of each series. I also planned around the two existing consoles for my visual fanfiction. Now let's get onto the games. So Donkey Kong, possibly being one of the most requested Game & Watch systems, would include Donkey Kong for NES, because yeah, as well as Donkey Kong Jr. and Donkey Kong 3, also for NES. As for Game Boy, I included Donkey Kong for the Game Boy, which was made in 1994 and is often referred to as Donkey Kong 94. No Donkey Kong Country, because I'm not sure how well SNES games would work on a Game & Watch, and I also passed on Donkey Kong Land, as it didn't fit with the theme of the games I was going with, being more classic Donkey Kong focused, as well as the amount of games potentially becoming too large for an affordable and concise device. The Game & Watch games, yes, games plural, as I have decided to go with 2 Game & Watch games per device. The games here would be Judge, replacing Mr. Game & Watch with Donkey Kong and Mario. I enjoyed the Luigi Easter egg in Ball, so I thought if repeated here would change Donkey Kong with Donkey Kong Jr. Speaking of Donkey Kong Jr., the second game is Donkey Kong Jr. from the widescreen series. As an added bonus, similar to the Zelda 2 timer, I thought I would add a calculator, being a nod to Donkey Kong Jr. map, and is reminiscent of the story behind the development, being Gunpei Yokoi seeing a bored businessman on the train fiddling around with his calculator. This selection of games was chosen because the character Donkey Kong appears in each title. It's also the only other device to not have the start and select buttons, similarly to the Super Mario Bros. Edition. Next up is Pokemon. Since there are no NES Pokemon games, we will be focusing more on the Game Boy, and the first pick for this series, Pokemon Yellow. It's a pretty fun time. They could include some added bonus, like a HM Pikachu if you hold down the A button on the new select screen, or something else to spice up the gameplay. I chose Pokemon Crystal wanting to stay true to the classics of Generation 1 and 2, however with some minor updates, such as from the Virtual Console version. Another important inclusion would be adding the Generation 2 Pokemon not originally obtainable to catch in Crystal, such as the Mareep and Remoraid line and Girafarig, having all 251 Pokemon being able to be caught between both games. What makes the Pokemon Game & Watch stand out is the fact that it's a whole Pokemon Mini. Shock Sensor, Rumble, and Infrared, which also allows the players to trade between all games, and it's all inbuilt. The whole collection of the Pokemon Mini's titles are on the device, which I have dubbed the Pokemon Mini Collection. Creative, I know. The Game & Watch games I included are Fire, featuring Pikachu saving fallen Pichu from the burnt tower, sending them to Nurse Chansey. The other game is Lion, featuring Arcanine evading Pokemon trainers trying to catch them. A fitting bonus feature for this console is Celebi's alarm clock. Located in the pause set menu, it allows you to set an alarm for any time of the day, with the option of music or rumble to be individually selected. You could even shake the device to stop the alarm, taking advantage of the shock sensor. All of this might seem like an oversized amount for something so small and costly, and it is. Let's continue. Kirby was next up, a series I thought would be easy to pick from its large gallery of games. But it was making a good hook for this device where I struggled. Then I realised I could rely on the games included to really make that impact. Kirby's Dream Land 1 and 2 for Game Boy felt fitting, as did the NES Kirby's Adventure. Then I decided to do a triple backflip off the rails while spinning and included Kirby Tilt and Tumble for the Game Boy Color, which immediately plays into the bonus feature being the Kirby Tilt and Tumble inspired level balancer. Not the most necessary feature, but I believe people would find creative uses for it. For the Game & Watch title remakes, I was going in the direction of the Silver series being fully represented here, with Kirby in Flagman. I chose this game for the Kirby system because it reminds me of how Kirby holds up his goodbye sign at the end of Kirby's Dream Land, which is just cute. And yes, I'd like to imagine holding the A button down would swap Kirby out for Bandana D. The second game I just had to add was Chef. Every fan of the Super Smash Bros. Series just took a sigh of relief. To explain further, Kirby would be the chef, looking how he does in Smash, with Bandana D, my boy, taking the role of the cat, and the Waddle Dee, like a regular Waddle Dee, takes the role of the mouse who runs off with the food, which I just think fits the series neatly. Now, Metroid is a great series that would be deserving of a console of its own. However, it didn't have enough games compared to the other devices I had made so far. One NES game and one Game Boy game felt small, and I didn't want to let down the audience, so I thought about how I could improve their experience. I slapped another series onto it. A series that only has one NES and one Game Boy game in it, similar playstyles, its own version of the Metroid known as the Tomato. And why is this blatant rip-off there? Because it's intentional, of course, as a lot of people that worked on Metroid also worked on Kid Icarus. Just to be clear, the lineup would be Metroid, Metroid 2, Return of Samus, Kid Icarus, and Kid Icarus 2 of Myths and Monsters. And since the Game & Watch Silver series only had 5 games, with this being the 6th console, I decided to move on to the next series down the line, which would be the Gold series. The Gold series only included 3 games, Line, which I put in the Pokemon console, and the other 2 on this Metroid and Kid Icarus console, the first being Helmet, now with Samus dodging falling Metroids. The second game being Manhole, with Pit using his manhole to stop the Komato, from finding him. The bonus feature here, I'm thinking a calendar. No real big reason why, I'm just thinking it'll help people keep track of the day you've spent playing this device. Oh. Now to summarize, we have 10 NES games, 10 Game Boy/Game Boy Color games. That is if you include the Pokemon Mini Collection as a Game Boy game, as I have, and 10 Game & Watch games, 5 from the Silver series, 3 from the Gold series, a widescreen and a new widescreen game, on top of each console having an internal clock and bonus features. Now I know it's far-fetched to think that these will be made someday, but I insist in adding that these were all made out of appreciation and respect for the joy Nintendo has brought so many people over the years, including myself. And even though the Nintendo Switch is essentially just a bigger, stronger, and overall more advanced version of the Game & Watch, and that all of those games are probably on Nintendo Switch Online anyway, or will be later on, it doesn't change how much I enjoy when Nintendo makes a timeless classic pick-up-and-play console like this. Well, I hope you had as much fun tuning into this video as I did making it. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on these fan designs, and what you think could be next for the Game & Watch in the comments section. And if you're so inclined, feel free to like and subscribe as well as sharing the video, because you never know who could see it. So Nintendo, I'm just saying. Well, that's all I have for now on extending the Game & Watch Color Screen series. Have a nice day.